you've built your product, you've launched it, and it sucks. That's okay. Welcome back to Listen to Leo. In today's video, I wanted to talk about the process of iteration and what you do when your product doesn't quite live up to expectations. And in fact, it shouldn't, especially when you're just getting started. So in last week's video where I was talking about everything I was doing with buildinpublic.coach, I talked about looking to try to get my first 10 users, and I didn't quite make that goal. I got 6 users that weren't me and 3 that were. Got a test, and those 6 users did teach me something about my product. It wasn't very good. Let's take a look at some of the numbers here. So of those 6 users, I had exactly 1 go through and answer the boilerplate questions I started with. So as I was designing this, I said, okay, when people get started, I want to know about what they're building, so I'll be able to tailor the responses to exactly what they needed. But I found out that this was not the way to do it. Only 1 person actually answered those questions. That tells me that my product sucks. It's not any good. And having gone through it 3 times myself as part of the testing, I can tell you it sucks. Something I've learned. If your product feels like a pain for you to use, it's definitely going to feel like a pain to everybody else, and they're not going to use it. One of the first things I launched, I realized was never going to be successful because even I didn't use it. It didn't solve a problem for me, and I didn't really find much use in it. I was designing it according to what I thought needed to exist, or what I thought the product should be, as opposed to actually basing it anywhere in reality. So how did I adjust this? One of the first things I did is I scrapped the 7 or so boilerplate questions that I asked, and instead I drop users right into the chat experience where they're actually chatting with the AI. And then I actually added in a new process that runs to the side. When a new message is received, it kicks the message over to an AI prompt that has the sole purpose of trying to pull out any information about the user or their product, and then storing that for future reference. So then I also adjusted the conversational flow because I didn't think it was doing a good job of actually answering questions quite the way that I wanted it to. And I was using an agent to kind of determine which tool it could use to accomplish the tasks and kind of what order. I wasn't happy with that. So instead, I just pulled it out into discrete pieces that I could kind of control a lot more. And so the second piece of it is, given the message, what information is needed about the user or their business to be able to provide them a satisfactory answer. And one thing I learned here is if you ask that by itself, you'll get a bunch of bullshit. It'll just make stuff up. Until I said, if you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know. That worked way better. When I was starting with essentially no user information, it would not actually answer any of the questions. Although I did learn that I needed to be a little more specific, because downstream, when I have the AI looking at that information and kind of crafting the final response, the AI would then get the impression that the person they were talking to didn't know sorts of different things about themselves or their business, which had some kind of weird responses come out there. So I did modify that to actually just say unknown as opposed to I don't know. Slight difference has a big difference on the outcome. So from there, I also added in a piece that can look up sources. And so I have some curated build in public sources that I use, that I reference, and I wanted to include those in the material that the AI has access to. Not a broad web search, but a very small curated search based on what I believe to be valuable. And so it can also pull supporting information based on the user's question to pull into the final response, and then also include sources at the bottom. So I have a process that I can use to crawl and scrape different websites that I put in. And so I can actually define sources that this AI has access to, making sure that they're very curated and specific. So I'm not pulling in a bunch of information that I don't need that can then kind of muddy the waters. And then finally, I take all of that information, put it into a prompt, and tell the AI to actually craft the user response. Overall, I'm a lot happier with this process. I think it is a much cleaner experience for the user. They're able to just drop directly into the chat experience. Over time, it will learn about the user, their product, their business, whatever, and then it'll store that. And ultimately, I think this is going to provide a really great user experience. At least that's what I hope. But I need to get more users. And so in the next week, that's really what I'm going to be focusing on. I have a partnership that I'm eyeing. Someone I know is kicking off a Build in Public class, and I'm going to offer my tool and just see what happens, because I think that there's a lot of value there. It's people who understand the value of building in public. I want to just offer it as a free perk to him and his class so that they can tell me if it's useful. And once I get that better feedback and get more people using it to see what it feels like, I'll be able to have more of an idea of where my product sits, how valuable it is, how useful it is, etc. So that's the plan moving forward. We'll see how it goes. But just remember, if your product sucks, that's okay. It's going to suck at first. It's all about the iteration and where you go from there. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.